Greetings, one and all. A little look at a lens. In this instance, the SMC super multi-coated Pentax-A 85mm f1.4. I gave a look at the 135 A star. There is also a 200 A star, which I'm lucky enough to have. 300 A star, which is one of the first, I think, which I'm lucky enough to have. I used to have the 400 A star. Mighty lens, 2.8, 400mm 2.8. Massive thing. I sold it. If I had the K-1 full frame body now, or then, I might not have sold it. But I was using this, the LX, and I just wasn't using the 400. So it went to Spain, I think. This is the lens then. It's got its rather like the larger A-star lens. It's got this this kind of lens hood. Might look a bit odd to you. Let me take it off. That bit goes in there. And this bit comes out if you like. And there's a lens on a Pentax LX. Now, that's the hood. Obviously, it's a screw-on hood. Quite substantial. Almost over the top. I like things well built. So, great. But adds a fair bit of weight. And it really is. But it does an excellent job, of course. So, fine. I leave it on there. Which is, I imagine that's what they would think you'd do. That's why they said provide this, which you can just slip over the top of it and you're ready to go, even if it's a rather weighty and large item. Compare it to this, which is the 85M. I have got a hood for it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So that's a comparison in size. I'll take this off, so that gives you a better idea perhaps. And there we go. So you can see, substantially larger. Here it is mounted on the Pentax K-1. I have got the hand grip on there. So now it's not such a... LX is quite a lovely, quite a svelte camera. So that's what it's like. And the full Monty with the hood as well. Okay. But the whole thing is quite substantial, obviously. Going to have a look from above. I'll take the filter off, which hasn't been off for ages, and have a look and show you close up. This one is like a user, if you like. Glass is good. Last time I looked it was. We'll see when I do the close-ups we're looking through. All this is fine. Has a very similar feel, lighter to turn than the 135, but the 135 is more critical. Has even the same sound, and likewise with the 200. So this seemed to have been an era for Pentax, and a bit of information about this. I'll put it on the screen. I'll tell you a website that's really good for this is kmp.pentaxians.eu, and they list all the lenses, well, not all, I think nearly all of the lenses, and you can click on them and look at the construction and anything interesting that they have to say occasionally, but mostly all the data about them and the year. So it seemed to be like these A-star lenses were from 1984. Seems like Pentax had a go then at producing some special lenses above and beyond the regular lenses. What they say on that site about this is it's the first Pentax 85mm lens with a maximum aperture of f1.4 and is one of the smallest lenses of its kind for that speed. Thanks to its free FRE, which is fixed rear element extension, which we'll see when I look from above close up, free design, it achieves excellent imaging characteristics over the entire focusing range from infinity to the close focus limit, even at open aperture. And I would say that it seems to be, does seem somehow, from what I can tell, to have been designed to excel at sort of portrait distance. I mean, 85 1.4s are known as portrait lenses, and maybe that, I don't know, it seems to do very well. I'll show you some pictures at the end. Has a certain something about it which it shares with the other A-style lenses. Not so much the 300 in my experience. There's a certain life in this and the 135 and the 200, and from what I remember of the 400, I'm after actually the 300 2.8, which is the cousin of the 400, the big one, but not quite so large. Again, very expensive, and would I use it that much? But I just fancy it, but they're very expensive. You have to pay import duty, and then you have to pay tax on top of that, and it all gets a bit silly. Anyway, so how I came by this particular one. Well, again, like the 135 and a number of lenses, it was in a job lot up the road there some years ago when people were jumping from Pentax because there was no full frame body, and it took a long time for Pentax to come up with a full frame body. And I think a lot of pros and serious amateurs thought, what am I going to do? So you sell a lot, you have to sell lenses as well, there's no point keeping them. So there was a whole batch with 3 LX bodies and loads of lenses. It seemed to be, many of them with signs of use, but optically good. And this was in amongst that job lot, if you like, which I got for a good price, and even better price when I said, well, I'll take the lot. How much? That's how I came by it. What the manufacturer says, well, not much these days. You have to look at other people, get information from that. Well, what do I notice about it? I notice it's very well built, simple as that. No play in anything. I'll show you from above how it all works. And I notice even through the viewfinder, I can tell I've got this lens on compared to some of the others. Well, mostly the A-style lenses, as I say, are similar. There's a certain a life to them, certain injection of light almost. And obviously very useful I'm a manual focus person. I haven't got any autofocus lenses. So very useful for manual focusing, even if you don't want them wide open, because of the light in the viewfinder for focusing on the screen. I find this screen okay in the K1. People say no. They say it's okay for manual focusing, but it could be better. Doubtless it could, but I switch everything off, so it's just completely plain. No lines on it or anything, and I can just concentrate, I hope, on what I'm focusing on, undistracted. So, yeah, seems a quality, solidly built piece of kit. A little bit of information, if you might be interested, before we go and look from above, is that, as I say, this was made or released in 1984. Later on, there was an autofocus version, which was released I didn't put these in order. Well, later 90-something, I can't find it, 92. A person I bought, not this, but one particular lens, a 50mm 1.2, Globetrotter his name was, on the Pentax forums. I went round to his place, he wasn't too far away from here, and bought his 50mm A 1.2, and he said, what about this, which was the next one up from this, the autofocus version. Of course I had this, so I didn't need it, but it's like a little bit tempted, but I looked at it, and I'll show you the picture. Sort of plastic bodied, manual focus felt rattly because it was an autofocus lens. Some people say it was better in some circumstances. It wasn't clearly better optically. Different configuration. But I just didn't fancy it. I had that little window with the... I just like these. I like this era, for me, of the lenses. So that was 92. So maybe that's when this was superseded. And then, as you may know now, there's a DFA 85, which I quite fancy. It looks massive. It's a current one. Fairly recently just come out. Give you an idea, this is 555 grams, this lens. The FA plastic one that's superseded this is 550 grams, so lighter, not surprisingly perhaps. But this new one, the DFA, is 1,355 grams. So obviously, I'm interested in that new one, but it hasn't got an aperture ring. I'm not sure if the focus is actual physical. I think it might be, or whether it's by wire. It has to have an electric signal to do it, because some of them don't actually do it mechanically. I suspect it does it mechanically. Anyway, most of them were 1984, and they have various things going on. This has this fixed rear element, as I said, seemingly no aspherical or ultra-low dispersion glass, quite standard. Quite a simple design. So this one is so many elements in so many groups, 7 elements in 6 groups. So a fairly simple design. The one that superseded it, the FA, was 8 elements in 7 groups, so a little bit more complex perhaps. And then the DFA, this current one, is 12 elements in 10 groups. That's why it's so heavy. Some people do say that the more elements you have to correct things, the more you sort of impede overall, even though it might measure better. I haven't noticed any purple fringing or green fringing. I did on the 135, so I imagine it's probably here. I just haven't had the right circumstances to see it, but it's certainly, I'll show you the pictures. Maybe we'll spot them in there. I don't look for it really. And also, if you're putting it on computer, always blowing up for what you use them for. Mostly, it's not going to be that large. But people want to correct for this and correct for that, so you have more and more elements and different types of glass. And sometimes, when I was looking at hi-fi, they rather like good, well-designed valve amplifiers because their signal path was so simple. What did they say? The best amplifier is a piece of wire with gain. So just a piece of wire that magically somehow manages to increase the signal to make it an amplifier. Of course, you can't do that, so you have to have components. But what they're saying is the fewer components, the better. Is there a case for the fewer elements, the better, if you can put up with some aberrations maybe? Who knows? Anyway, that's about it. We'll look from above, close up, and then I'll show you some photos that I've taken. But I should say, this has been my most used lens for years and years on the LX. Jazz clubs at night mostly. Photographing, I'm a singing teacher and a singer and musician, so I'll be there photographing my colleagues and so on, friends. This one, the 85 1.4, it's mostly portraits I was doing, has had loads of use, and still, no, I wouldn't know, but I've used it a lot. So I'm going to put some of those photographs of them, some of them going from film days. Bear in mind that the portraits of females have gone through Portrait Pro, which softens the skin tones and so on, and does its thing. So with the portraits, you still get an idea of something about it, and the background is not touched by that program, so it will be mostly out of focus, so you can see that. I've got a couple which I took just yesterday, which I'll put right at the very end, and there are some photographs of shoes. I'm quite into shoes, and I sit there and photograph. Those haven't been processed, other than contrast and the usual stuff that goes. Haven't been sharpened or anything. And I think the leather of the shoes is quite good. I recognised it somehow, even looking through the viewfinder. I recognised something about that skin. I don't know. It's sharp, but it's kind of not severe somehow. So bear that in mind when you look at the photographs at the end. There we go. Pentax SMC Pentax-A star 85mm 1.4. See you next time. All right, let me show you around then. Here it is on the LX, which you've the K-1, which you've seen. I'm looking here. Yeah, on mine, a couple of coating marks, I think. I think so. A bit difficult to tell. I'll have a look at that later with the cleaning cloth, but let's so that's a quite substantial lens hood. And since I've had it, I don't know whether I bought it second hand with this filter on, but on these lenses I got Pentax. Oh no, it's a Hoya on this. HMC. Needs a bit of cleaning there. On most of them I've got Pentax SMC filters, which are pretty difficult to come by these days, it seems. Need a bit of dust there, so I'll blow that off before we look. So, there it is. As you can see, being used, isn't it? It's okay. Yeah. But very no play this way or rocking. Amazing, really, isn't it? I think that era of Pentax lenses, well, no, all the way from the early days, really. Got some older ones. Very well made. I'm never so keen on the plastic. Nothing wrong with plastic. Well used, good plastic in the right place. But I don't know. And this, of course, on the LX and on the K-1 is a automatic setting. It's very useful, I find anyway. Looks very good, that front element. I'm looking, I don't see any marks on there at all. Show you the stopping down. So not circular, as you can see. But whatever, I don't found that an issue. Frankly, that's something that people seem to be concerned about these days. Despite the amount of use, not that much wear on the bayonets. Now let's have a look at that. So yes, I can see some dust and stuff, is it? There may be some coating marks there. We shall see. I'll use some fluid gently later. Don't know if that kind of thing makes any difference. Well, I certainly haven't noticed in the photographs and looking through it. So there's one spot there I can see in the middle that you see. Can't put my finger on it, but that, looking from a different angle from the camera, looks to me a bit of stuck on stuff. So I'll just leave it alone. But no matter what you do, I noticed the front element behind the filter had dust in it, and I'm sure I would have cleaned that before I put it on. So no matter what you do, stuff seems to accumulate, and the front had quite a bit on, even though, I keep the hood on and what have you. So every now and then I think you just need to go and blow the air off. Anyway, I'll show you the photographs that I've taken with it over the many years. And as I say, watch out for the skin on the portraits, because that will have been softened by Portrait Pro, but it only touches the skin and maybe the hair, but the background and anything else around, that will be as is, not softened. And the shoes, not softened. And then there will be a couple of twigs at the end where I focused on a bud in the middle, which I shall put a note so you know what to look at, because the depth of field is very, very shallow. Now, as it happened, I did a thorough inspection, and I've noticed that there are signs of balsam separation round the edge of, I'm sure it's balsam well, I feel sure it's balsam separation, not fungus. I thought I'd show you by shining a light through. If I can get it, it's quite tricky to, once you've seen it, it's quite obvious. Sorry about that. It's not a very good angle for it. There. Can you see round the edge? Round there, all the way round. So, the reason I think it's balsam separation, not fungus, it hasn't got those long strangly bits going in, and it's also quite even all the way round. You can see that. And also, if you see my other video on the 135 1.8, they were from the same batch, so my suspicion is that this photographer, the way they were treated, maybe in heat, if left in the cars and so on, is professional photography. You see it's quite well worn, and the 135 is as well. So maybe happened to this one as well, along with the 135. Maybe they got hot over extended periods of time and started that balsam separation. So what am I to do? Well, I don't know. You could find someone to send it to. People I sent it to before seem to have been long gone, so forget that. There may be people in this country. I've seen adverts for people in America, so it means dismantling the lens, separating those elements, cleaning them up, recoating them, re-cementing them, aligning them, and putting it all back together again. We shall see. We shall see. It's round the edge, so immediately you stop down, you're not going to see it. It's not going to be part of the, even that. That's the first half stop. So it's gone. Wide open. If you're doing portraits, it's probably they're going to mostly be in the centre. I might do some tests. That's the beauty of digital camera, isn't it? You can fiddle about to your heart's content without costing you anything. So there we go. We shall see. May well just leave it. Keep an eye on it. May do some research. See if I might have it fixed. Don't know. That was good to see. It's good to know. Anyway, keep an eye on things. Know what's happening. All right then.